You know, one of the things about events like TEDx or actually any event, is when one gets exposed to people who are just so amazing. One thinks, well, is there any limit to what young people, what the world can actually achieve? And I just wonder if that is the purpose, the real purpose of schools, of the education, the formal educational process. And I'm just looking at girls like this, and you wonder, where is she going to end up in the world? Does she have any idea? I had no idea. I don't know how many people here had any idea. Interestingly, when I talk to people about school and education, everybody has something to say. And a lot of people go, yeah, the trouble with school, I was bad at school, but then when I went to university, I was great. And other people just say, school? No, I don't think that's right. And there are a lot of people who feel disenfranchised by the whole thing. They think that the world is not fair, is not right, and they've got to do something about it. Interestingly, I started looking, well, actually, what is the purpose of education and where does it all fit in? Do you know, I quite often start, if I'm talking to a whole lot of teachers, why do we have schools? What do you mean, why do we have schools? Of course we have schools. We always have schools. Really? Yes, always. Ever since cavemen, we had schools. I said, I don't think so. And it only really started a couple of 100 years ago when we started developing the process of schools. And then they started getting specialized, and then we had science teachers, and we had maths teachers. And maths teachers tend to say to kids, you have to learn maths. And the drama teachers go, oh, I wasn't really good at maths, but drama is wonderful. And we get caught up in all of that. There's a definition of teaching. If you do a search, it's to improve knowledge and develop skills. And I say, knowledge of what? I don't like school. Skills, I can escape from school. And we test whether you are free to be released into society by sitting an exam. Has anybody here met people who are superbly well qualified, and you meet them and you go, you're an idiot. How did this happen? And I bet we also know some people who were fantastic people and they did badly at exams. And so forever they'll be classed, and they might even think of themselves as a failure. So there's something maybe a little bit wrong in all of this. And why do we have it in the first place? I guess it's to get a job. Really? Get a career. Really? Probably to be able to work out a way of keeping myself an income, which might not be the same as a job. It might be different jobs and different things. And maybe life skills, so I can work out how I'm going to deal with changes, how I'm going to deal with a situation where I suddenly have a child. Maybe when I find myself losing a leg, or all these, how can I evaluate, how can I readapt myself? But let's take schools, and let's take the process of schools. You see, there's a general assumption. And the assumption is, well, you need about 20 years of education before you can be released into the world at large. That's changed over years. It used to be about until the age of 10 or 11, then you can get a job. But now it's about 20, maybe a little bit older. And then we'll work from 20 until about 65, when you can retire. So you'll feed into the social system for about 45 years, and then you'll retire and maybe live for 20 more years, and then hopefully you'll die and then you're gone. But that's changed, because people are living a lot longer. In fact, if you look at New Scientist in 2006, there was a wonderful article which says, we believe the first human to live beyond the age of 200 has already been born. What? Just imagine getting your first job and you go, yeah, it'll be 180 years before you get promoted. What? Really? And the other thing is that people are active for longer. You know, when I was a kid a long time ago, and I used to hear people talking about being 70 years old, I said, oh, nearly dead, you know. And now 70-year-olds are traveling around the world, they're going up in balloons, they're doing all sorts of things. So life has changed. Anyway, let's have a look at how society deals with all of this, and we've got GDP. We spend about 5% of global product in the world of education. That's twice as much as we spend on defense. But it's only half of what we spend on on health. And if you take social services, that's unemployment, that's looking after people, that's care, it eclipses all of it. I wonder if the reason why we have so much costs of social services is because we haven't quite got education and health right. So let's see where we can go, because the social services are growing very fast. And you know, in most cases where we spend money, where we have effort, we put feedback loops to see is it any good. Education tends not to have too many feedback loops. You know, almost everybody in this audience has been to school. And I'm just wondering how many of you have been asked to go back to your schools to give some feedback on what they could have done better now that you're working in life. Yeah, the fact that we're laughing about it does make sense though, doesn't it? But I'm just imagining the conversation. Hi, I've been to your school, yes, and I'd like to give you some feedback. No. You know? So let's have a look. I asked, 10 years ago, we did a little work and we just sort of said, actually, what do you really want from schools? How do you measure really good schools? And we talked to parents, teachers, governments, and the rest of society. And what happened here is that parents, educators, and students all said, we want to have fun, we want to be good, we've got to build confidence, and all the rest of it. People who'd been to school and years later said, what's important about schools is what can you do after school? Complete difference between input and outcome. Does that make sense? So we have a lot of stuff. And so if we start using an analysis of accountability about what is the purpose and how should we devote energy into it, we look at the resources used and the results achieved. Now, I think that a lot of schools are a little bit like an assembly line of organic objects. In this case, a chicken factory. You know? And in a chicken factory, we weigh the chickens. We see this one's a little bit small, so we'll give it a bit more food. And this one's looking a bit old, so that's time to go, and all the rest of it. And this one's cranky. This one's a bit objectionable. This is causing a union of we've got a whole group of chickens who are anti us. And so you'll just take them away, and we'll put them into an alternative chicken farm. We do that with schools. It's called alternative education, you know? And the alternative education is much better usually than normal education. So you get kids being bad, so they get taken to alternative education. But the reality of it all is that we're not very good at even testing, are the chickens tasty? They're big, you know? They're big and heavy. And if you go back all the way to PISA, the Program for International Student Assessment of 2006, Andreas Schleicher wrote, this highlights the skills that I'm going to have to read it. In other words, the kind of skills that are easiest to teach and easiest to test are no longer sufficient to prepare young people for the future. And that was in 2006. If we go all the way back to Thomas Jefferson in 1781, he was proposing we want education for everybody, and at a certain point in time, we'll have a look and see how well people are doing, and if they're any good, we'll take them to grammar schools, and if they are fantastic, some of them, we'll take them on to university, and others will become teachers. And I'm guessing in this room, there will be some people who think, if you can't do, teach. And I don't think that can be right. So let's have a look and see this incredible, intelligent, sophisticated TEDx audience. Let's see. Let's do a test. It's a simple test. All I'd like you to do is to tell me which of these vertical lines is longer. Is it the one on the left or the one on the right? So, just by going, yay. Who thinks it's the one on the left? Who thinks it's the one on the right? And the rest of you? Oh, right. Louder? On the same. Okay. Confident about that? Absolutely. Well, they're not the same. The one on the right is 22% shorter. Now, I know this because I did this. I've been experimenting with how much difference can you make. If you make it 25%, it's obvious. If you make it 21%, 22%. That's it. So why was that? How much thought did we put into it from the fact that this is obviously some sort of test, obviously some sort of game which we're playing? We'll try it again. Which one is longer? All right. This one, the one on the left, or the one on the right? Okay. Who thinks it's this one? Nobody. Who thinks it's this one? Who thinks they're the same size? Who thinks this one? Louder. Same size? No, okay, yeah. Well, they are the same size. Now, what's sad is that a few moments ago, the same size, you know? And now we've done this, you go, yay, it's the same size! I got it right. This is absurd, isn't it? And I think the purpose of education and testing is not so much what you know, but what you can do with it. And schools and education is very good at giving you knowledge, but not terribly good at what you can do with it. The people who know what you can do with it are people who've probably left school and done something completely different. But quite often, they don't get asked. They don't get asked to come back and just tell us about your journey in life and try and inspire kids to do this. That's what I do. And I've done it with thousands of kids. And funnily enough, they find when you say that exams aren't everything, really? You can be successful without getting a top mark in maths. Oh, right, okay. That relieves the stress. And guess what happens to their maths results? They go up. They go up because it doesn't matter anymore. Does that make sense? It's a sort of a perversion, isn't it? But we've done it with thousands of kids from complex backgrounds, from the kids who are not expected necessarily to do well. How ridiculous can you think a kid won't do well? On what basis do you say that? And let's look at the scale. You know, we've got 25,000 universities globally. 5.5 million schools. 100 million teachers. 50% of those teachers are over 40. Which is not a bad thing, but it means that they may have a gap in knowledge of what's happening in today's world. They may not be terribly good at the devices which, oh, I've pulled out my microphone. Not very good at just using the phone. It's not a phone, is it? It's a device which connects me to everything, anytime, anywhere. And in my country, we're starting to ban these devices in schools because kids misuse them. Well, like what? Like checking Pythagoras? No. They're doing silly things. Really? Yeah, they're playing. Really? Are they not learning? No, they can't be learning because they don't. No, they can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. So around the world, what we've found is we've got more and more teachers. It's growing very fast. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at the analysis of teachers, if you look at how many teachers are under 30 years old, there is a dramatic shortage of under 30-year-old teachers. And in my country, we have a lot of them, and they leave very quickly, which is even more ridiculous. In other countries, and you can get all the research and you have a look at it, in other countries, what you find is that at secondary school level, which is exactly when kids are starting to decide what might I do next, there are even older teachers involved. Now, I'm not against older teachers. I think there's something very good about wise and ability to communicate and to inspire people. But that's not the same as teaching them to pass examinations. Inspiring is about getting kids to be curious, inquisitive, working out for themselves, and having a discussion about what about this and what about that, and understanding the difference between real information and fake information. Because there's a hell of a lot of information around. And the big change happened really in 2006, when we started having smartphones. And in 2008, when they started becoming fun. The fart machine is the thing which suddenly people thought the iPhone can be cool because it can make fart noises. What? And that has moved dramatically. So when we had COVID and when we had lockdown, I pivoted and I started saying, you know, the great thing about this is we're no longer bound by geographical constraints, we're bound by time zone constraints. So I started saying to kids, we can have a meeting with a really great person in medical science. It'll be at 3 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, teachers go, oh, kids aren't going to get up 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, they're all there. Why? Because they're suddenly giving them access to something which they didn't think was possible. If you just look at books, about 200 million in the world. If you look at websites, about 200 million. If you look at the App Store, about 10 million at the moment. It's not like there's not much information around. It's really about how the hell do you work it all out? Love pictures like this. This was an accidental interchange between a little girl and an older guy talking about, can you believe, flowers. How lovely is that? So let's go back and let's start thinking, what's it all about? How do we help these people work out through this challenging series of interventions which are going to happen, about the accidental meetings they're going to have, about those impromptu stuff which takes place, which causes dramatic shifts in the direction of travel which we're going to have? The fact is, the future is for everyone. Not just for teachers, not just about kids who do well in maths, not about anything like that. It's for everyone. It isn't going to be as we predict. That's the one thing which we know. And actually, we have a collective responsibility between all of us to optimize the opportunities for young people. And that is an idea worth keeping and sharing. Thank you.